Welcome back to the channel, guys. If you're new here, my name's Azam. We've got everything to do with the new A3 and S3, so make sure you hit that subscribe button and check out our channel. In this one, we're going to be looking at something that's been asked for a very long time. Now that we've got the Vorsprung, it's something we could bring to you. So we're going to be looking at the driver assistance pack. It's going to be a pretty detailed one, simply because there's quite a lot to it. So what we're going to be focusing on is the adaptive cruise control and how that differs from the standard cruise control we showed you last week. We'll then look at some of the camera-based traffic sign recognition and how that works. And then finally follow it up with the adaptive cruise assist, which is basically where the first two come together and where the driver assistance pack really comes into its own. Make sure you stay tuned to the end. We will be covering off our honest thoughts on it, some of the pitfalls to look out for and where not necessarily to rely on it. It's a fantastic pack. It's actually now one of my favorites, but I'll show you where you should be careful. Let's get stuck into it, guys. Just like last week, we're in a POV mode. We're going to demonstrate to you how the adaptive cruise control works and how it's different from the previous video on the edition 1 last week. So you can see I'm behind this Vauxhall Corsa at the moment. The speed limit is 70 miles per hour. That's what my cruise control is set to. So if you look on the virtual cockpit, bottom right hand corner, it's telling you my set speed is 70 miles per hour. But my actual speed is 60 miles per hour. Now that's because obviously the car is gauging that there's another car in front of me and I'm not having the safe enough distance to get up to 70 miles per hour. Really simple stuff. It's using the sensors located in the front grille and basically bouncing off radars to work out how far that car is in front, what my current speed is, and then how it can drop it down, right? The other difference, the major difference you have is looking at the virtual cockpit, the driver assist. You remember it was similar on the proximity warning aspects of the edition 1 where there wasn't a driver assistance pack. However, this time you can see there's a little white box, and what that white box is saying is how far a distance do you want to keep from your car in front. So going back down to the cruise control lever, you've got an extra toggle this time with distance, so you can increase or decrease the distance, right? So I'm just going to increase it, and watch the animation on the virtual cockpit. It's basically going to start increasing the distance. Now watch the car slow down and increase the gap between me and the Vauxhall Corsa. So you'll see, give it a couple of seconds, my speed's reducing just as you'd expect, and it slowly increased that gap up to a point where the car's happy, right? Then what you're able to do is say, actually, that's too much of a gap. This might be a situation if you start seeing cars arriving on your bumper, you know you're getting a bit too slow. So it's quite a big gap at the moment. Now, just to close it down, press down or the minus part of the toggle, and you'll see by the car's slowly accelerating by itself, and it's going to pick up and get to the point where it needs to be. So again, you can see we're struggling. We're not really hitting 70 miles per hour just because the car's in front. But I must stress that the whole time, if you look down, my feet aren't anywhere near the pedals. Now that Corsa's moved completely out of lane. The car sensed it and is accelerated accordingly, right? So there's nothing obstructing its way in the immediate distance. It should be able to speed up to 70 miles per hour, and that's what we're seeing on the virtual cockpit right now. On the Vorsprung, you have all of this information on your heads-up display as well. Really good, really easy to use, and the way you know the radar cruise control is active is the green icon in the corner, and you've got your they look like Wi-Fi symbols, but your radar beams or your radial waves going up and down. So really easy to use. And what we'll do now is head on back. I'll explain to you how the camera-based traffic sign recognition works, and then we'll come back and give you the demo of how the two merge together to give you the adaptive cruise assist and basically the wonders behind that. Right guys, hope you enjoyed that first part. Now we're going to talk about the camera-based traffic sign recognition. How that works is there's cameras in the back of the rear view mirror which focus out on the road and it's constantly scanning for different traffic signs. You've also then got the inbuilt sat-nav records as well. So depending on the road, the satellite navigation knows what your speed limit should be and is able to basically make adjustments on the car based on that. So what you have to do is press the car icon on the MMI, go down to driver assist, again click adaptive cruise assist, and now where it's going to start getting really smart is if you go onto predictive control, you can see there's an option. By default it's set to off, so it's very similar to the way that we had to change speed on the standard cruise control system by using the stalk. However, what you're able to do is actually set it to on, and what that will do is automatically, based on what's stored in the sat nav, based on what the camera can see, it will adjust your speed limit off your cruise control automatically up and down. Really good. Definitely recommend switching that on, and we'll show you why in just a second. The other options you get with this camera-based traffic sign recognition is a speed limit warning. So again, on the MMI, rather than going into the adaptive cruise assist, you've got speed warning. And what you can do at this point is configure warning alerts, and what you have is a scale from 0 to 5 miles per hour. So you can say, when I've gone 3 miles per hour over, chime or give me a warning alert just to tell me to bring the speed back down. So again, it's part of the driver assistance pack. I don't believe it is available as standard. Really clever stuff, but it was definitely worth taking the time out just to explain to you guys the concept. So now that we can go and demonstrate to you how this all works together, the adaptive cruise control plus the camera-based traffic sign recognition, put those two together, you end up with your adaptive cruise assist, guys. Let's go out and demonstrate it, and then we'll come back and talk you through some of the pitfalls. The first place we're going to see the camera-based traffic sign recognition do its job is basically in the change of speed limit. So I've got my adaptive cruise control set. Basically, it's just setting it the same way you would do with the cruise control, and what it does automatically is pick up the speed limit. So in the lower right-hand corner, what you're able to see is basically the current speed limit set to 50 miles per hour, and as we're approaching the start of the motorway now, you'll see in a second the number 70 will start flashing. There you go. That's telling you that the speed limit's changing. This is obviously because we've set it up in the predictive cruise settings, which I should talk to you through a couple of minutes ago. Right guys, so the second part of the camera-based traffic sign recognition, pay attention to the 50s, and now look at the virtual cockpit. The car's automatically going to bring itself down to 50 miles per hour. The sat nav does not have that information stored in there, that there's roadworks coming up. Instead, what it's purely working off is the traffic signs. So it sees a large 50 mile per hour sign, it knows there's something overriding the 70 mile per hour navigation speed that's been set, right? So what it will do is, through the camera, override that based on what it can see. Now, we're not going to stay on towards the end of these roadworks, but what will happen is, as you see your national speed limit sign, the camera will pick that up and pick the car back up to 70 miles per hour. So that's the second example of how the camera-based traffic sign recognition works. And it's really helping to show you guys now how all of this begins to tie in. So we showed you the radar cruise control. Now we're showing you how it becomes an adaptive cruise assist. So one of the last things that I want to show you guys is, if you press this left-hand button on the indicator stalk, what will happen is you'll switch on lane guidance, and that essentially helps keep you in the middle of the lane. So have a look here. As the road's bending, my hand, look, literally I've got a finger on the wheel, and you can see it's taking the bend pretty much as it should. So what it's doing is, you've seen the 2 triangle arrows pop up on the virtual cockpit, and now using the ultrasonic sensors as well as the camera, it knows where the inner and outer edge of the lane is, just like you saw in the lane departure video. And what it's able to do is basically just keep you in the middle of the lane. So you can completely take your hands off the wheel, but after a few seconds it'll start giving you a warning to put your hands back on the wheel. So I think this is why the Vorsprung, as well as any car with the driver assistance pack, comes with this full circle steering wheel, and you can't have a flat bottom steering wheel, simply because I believe there's sensors in there. So for example, what I'm going to do now is just slightly let go of the wheel, and you'll see in a few seconds it will tell me to put my hands back on the wheel, right? And all I'm going to do, pay attention to my hand. I'm not even holding it, I'm just literally just tapped it back. So as long as your hand's on there, so if I take up now my normal cruising position, you can see basically the car will just continue to drive itself. And it's really good for long journeys. So again, pay attention. As we're going around this bend, the car's going to turn itself. And this is a pretty steepish bend, so it gives you a good idea of what the car's comfortable enough to do. Obviously alongside this, it will do all of the accelerating, decelerating. So it's very close to autopilot, but not complete replacement, because you do have to remain vigilant, do have to remain alert. There will be some times where the technology doesn't work as expected, which again we'll touch on at the end of the video. But shout out to Kavi for pointing this out. I wasn't actually aware that this button existed. For me, by default, it wasn't turned on, so I didn't have these two green arrows. So you do have to click it in on the indicator stalk, and then it'll remember your last setting basically. So once again, shout out to you, Kavi, for pointing that one out. It's made it worthwhile going back and refilming this element of it and putting it in the video. So moving on to the last section of the video then, what I want you to pay attention to is the red line going from 0 to 130 on the speedometer. That's the scope of the adaptive cruise assist, in terms of it can bring you down to 0 miles per hour, it can take you up to 130 miles per hour. Where it's good is when you're in a traffic jam, it'll bring you back down to 0 and help you move in slow traffic. So really good. And what we'll do is, once I come off, I'll throw in a clip just to show you guys how that works. So you can see in a second, it'll bring us all the way down to 0, depending on if this is standstill traffic. Fingers crossed. Come on, stop, 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 stop. There you go. So it stopped and you're there at 0 miles per hour. Now, if this car moved off in the next 10 seconds, essentially what would happen is the car would automatically start going as well. So it has the ability to stop you all the way down to 0 miles per hour and take you on the opposite side of the spectrum up to 130 miles per hour. So obviously the only place you'll probably be cruising at 130 miles per hour is probably on the Autobahn, but that's why the car has it. So it was obviously longer than 10 seconds. So to re-engage it, what I was able to do was just simply tap the accelerator or pull back on the cruise control stalk. So you can pull it towards yourself, it'll re-engage, but you get the idea. It's basically, it helps you come back down, and then I think there's a safety limitation where if it's longer than 10 seconds, it'll disengage. But as I just touched on, it's really simple to re-engage. Just tap the accelerator and it'll carry on. So here you can see we've been under 10 seconds and the car moved by itself. So it's giving you a really good example of both types. So hopefully you can see in a traffic jam, it's actually pretty good to have. But now what we'll do is jump back to the main part of the video, the conclusion, whether or not this pack's worth it, and I'll show you some of the pitfalls. Right guys, hope you enjoyed that part of the video. If you did, make sure you give this one a fat thumbs up and hit that subscribe button if you've not done so already. As promised, now what we're going to do is talk you through some of the pitfalls. So I've been using this for the best part of, I'd say, 600 to 700 miles now. So I've got a good idea of when it works, how it works, and some of the things that you should really be aware of before going out and trying this. So firstly, like I touched on in the video, it is a driver assist rather than a driver replacement. And what I mean by that is you still need to be vigilant. So everything across this whole pack, still be vigilant. Don't be complacent. So why I'm saying that is because I've seen once or twice where the camera-based traffic sign recognition does some strange things. So it slows down from 70 to 50 as expected, but then all of a sudden it starts speeding back up to 70 because for some reason it thinks the speed limit's gone back up. Now, you obviously have to be vigilant there because you're going to start breaking the speed limit. So at that point you have to cancel it by pressing the brake pedal. The other area where I found that it can be a bit scary or not working as expected is if there's a slight bend in the road. So let's just say you're coming off a motorway junction and there's a car in front of you, but it's slightly round a bend. You can see it with your eyes. So let's just say it's a 40-degree bend. You can see it as the car's coming off and you're going around that bend. What happens is the car physically can't see it in the camera, so it reacts very late. In fact, to be honest, I don't even think it would react every time I've had to press the brake pedal myself, right? So if you're coming off the motorway and you can see the slight bend, be prepared to take over control. Likewise, if there's another car on the motorway which is cutting you up, so coming in pretty late into your lane, the camera won't pick that up quick enough, as the car's probably not far enough for it to detect that it is a car. And basically what will happen is, again, you have to take control. I've seen it a few times. It doesn't happen as much, guys. I don't want this to put you off, but I just want to make you aware that there are certain circumstances where it pays to be vigilant. The way Adaptive Cruise Assist uses the brakes. So it's not conventional, like I don't know, for me, if I see a car in front slowing down, I'd pretty early be on the brakes, lightly pressing it. Whereas with the adaptive cruise assist, it'll actually go pretty close and then apply the brakes. And what ends up happening is, as a passenger, if you're not expecting it, it's a bit of a harsh ride, as in like you'll literally be going backwards and forwards in your seat. I'm exaggerating a little bit, guys, but you get the idea. If you're driving it yourself, you see it a lot further ahead in the road and you take the action, whereas the adaptive cruise assist will wait till it gets within its limits, and then it actually shows you how late you can brake. So not to say it's terrifying, it's just noticeably less comfortable than what you would have if you're driving the car yourself. Now, going back to the overall picture, is this pack worth it? So on the Edition one, we didn't go for it simply because we felt we didn't do enough motorway driving and it wouldn't have been of value for us. In hindsight now, having used it on the Vorsprung, I pretty much use it, I would say 70 to 80% of the time. So like we demonstrated towards the end of the video, you can actually use this around town as well, because it works pretty much up to 0. It brings you down to a standstill. So even if you're around a 20 mile per hour local speed limit, it works. Now, I've also noticed that the motorway journeys I do now feel a lot less tiring. And what I mean by that is I no longer have to worry about the car in front. What the speed limit is, the car takes care of all of that by itself. If I was going back 6 months, would I spec this up? I genuinely think I would now. Because on the Edition 1, we'd already gone for the comfort and sound pack, it had reduced the price from $17.50 down to $14.05. So if you want to know more about that and when it makes sense to go from an Edition 1 to a Vorsprung, make sure you check out the video up here. Let us know down below in the comment section what you thought of the demonstration. Was there anything new that you weren't aware of? Have you spec'd this up on your car? What were your reasons for doing so? Likewise, if you haven't, what was your reasons for doing so? Was it like mine, which initially we felt we weren't going to use it as much? If you did like the video, guys, again, please make sure you give it a fat thumbs up. It helps us out a lot in terms of how wide YouTube pushes the video. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for the next video. Thanks a lot for watching, guys.